Hey everyone, and welcome to Bonnie Astrology. Today I'm going to be discussing the total lunar eclipse in Virgo, which is happening on the 14th of March 2025, and of course what it means for your zodiac sign. As always, if you do enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up to let me know that you like it. Subscribe to the channel for regular astrology content. If you want to follow me on any of my other socials for more regular posting, they are listed in the description box below, and if you want to check out my website, it is also listed in the description box below. So firstly, I'm going to get into this total lunar eclipse, the general themes surrounding it, surrounding eclipses in general, but this one specifically, and then I'm going to go into what it means for each of the individual zodiac signs. If you want to know what it means for you and you want to click ahead, please click on the sign that is your rising sign for the most accurate predictions. However, you can also watch your sun and moon. So this is a total lunar eclipse happening in the sign of Virgo, and this is the second eclipse in the series of eclipses in Pisces and Virgo that began in September 2024. The nodes then moved into Pisces and Virgo in January, the north node moving into Pisces and the south node into Virgo, meaning that this is a south node based eclipse. Now the south node is all about what we are healing and what we are releasing, and a lot of the time where the south node is where we start to realize where something is no longer workable. Now in the sign of Virgo, that means that we might literally be letting go of work that is no longer useful, or work that is no longer productive, beneficial, or in alignment with who we're becoming. And this may also be a time where we're letting go of tendencies of perfectionism and working beyond our means in the sign of Virgo. Virgo is a sign associated with getting things perfect, right down to the detail. And sometimes this can get out of hand. So with a lunar eclipse in Virgo, particularly with the south node, we may be releasing tendencies of perfectionism, needing to get everything right and needing to get everything correct. Virgo is also the sign of health. So we may be releasing what is no longer healthy for us. And this can be individual. Health is a very unique journey for each person. For one person, it may be releasing something from their diet that no longer works for them, that they can no longer really digest, or is not healthy for that individual. And for some people, it can be incorporating something in. A lot of the times with eclipses in Virgo, it can be that for the sake of your health, you're letting something go. And that can be a mindset, or it can be something specific to you, but it will be unique to you, especially with how the eclipse interacts with your chart. Sometimes as well with eclipses in Virgo, which we have not had since 2016, you may notice that the concept of health comes up more for discussion collectively, publicly. So this can be to do with the health service, for example, in the United Kingdom. That can be the NHS is coming up for discussion under a lunar eclipse in Virgo, or is undergoing significant reform or change with a lunar eclipse in Virgo as well. As I said, for each of us personally, it can be our own considerations surrounding our health and maybe making some much needed changes when it comes to our well-being with this total lunar eclipse. This may be a lunar eclipse where you also notice people around you making job changes or undergoing significant job shifts, whether that be taking a new job, leaving their job, whether that be changing their services, whether that be changing their approach to work and their approach to their habits. Virgo is the ruler of the 6th house, and the 6th house is the work that we do on a daily basis. So you may find under this eclipse that you're maybe considering, this may be over the next 6 months, a time where I want to change job, I want to change role. You may be wanting to release some of the burdens that you have been carrying. Now, one of the reasons this is so important is because this eclipse is actually in an opposition to Saturn. Saturn at the time of this eclipse will be conjunct the Sun in Pisces. And when we have Saturn-Sun conjunctions, a lot of the time it brings our work into focus generally. And Saturn is the planet of responsibility, and it is also the planet of karma. So eclipses in general are very karmic points in our destiny. They tend to represent external changes that happen to us. They tend to represent big turning points or peak moments in our life story. So they are karmic. They are destined. Saturn is also one of those planets that is very karmic in nature. So there is a strong sense of what will be with this lunar eclipse. But with the Saturn component to it, as well as the sign of Virgo, you may find under this eclipse that you want to let go of some responsibilities or some burdens for the sake of your health or the sake of your well-being. And you may notice that when it comes to your health, you're more focused on looking at it from a rather emotional, spiritual, or holistic perspective, with so many planets in Pisces and the North Node being in Pisces. At the time of this eclipse, the Sun will be in Pisces, Saturn, Neptune, and the North Node. The North Node and Neptune are still in a conjunction, and so you may be more interested in going down the spiritual route, or noticing with the opposition in Virgo, which is physical health, and Pisces, which is mental health, that mind, body, soul connection, and how you can maybe look at both together rather than viewing them as separate entities. So under this eclipse, you may be making changes spiritually, you may be making changes practically, but there is some degree of interconnectedness with the two concepts. So Saturn's bringing in this karmic element of responsibility. What are you taking responsibility for? What burden are you carrying? How is that affecting your health? How is that affecting your well-being with this lunar eclipse in Virgo? Eclipses do tend to be quite significant, and if you're sensitive to energy, you may be feeling this quite strongly. If you're very sensitive, you're more likely to feel this eclipse, especially if you're a Pisces or a Virgo sun, moon, or rising. And if you have any placements at 23 degrees of Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Gemini, you're noticing this. You may actually be feeling this quite physically. Virgo rules the digestive system, so people might notice a little bit of nausea, upset stomachs, or something of that nature around the time of this eclipse, especially if you are sensitive to energy. We can sometimes experience under an eclipse what is known as an eclipse hangover, where you feel a little bit sick, but you've no real reason to, and it sort of passes after a day or something like that. But because Virgo rules the digestive system, a lot of people might be noticing the week of the eclipse that they have upset tummies. That's just something to mind with this eclipse in Virgo. Oftentimes ginger actually helps with digestive issues. As I mentioned before, the people most likely to be affected are those who have the mutable signs at 23 degrees for their personal placements. The personal placements most likely to feel this: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, or the angles. So if you have your ascendant, for example, at 23 degrees, you're most likely to feel this if it's at Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, or Gemini. But really with this eclipse, we're looking at 20 to 25 degrees of the mutable signs. So pull up your birth chart, have a look. Do you have anything from 20 to 25 of Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, or Sagittarius? This eclipse may be a significant turning point for you. This might be a time when there are significant shifts happening around you. Now, eclipses are unique. Not everyone feels them. It's not a life-changing event for everybody. It's if it interacts with your birth chart, you're more likely to feel it. You can also check how eclipses interact with your progressed chart as well if you have it. But with this eclipse, do pay attention to what planet or angle in your chart it is hitting, because the themes of those planets are coming up. And really with the sign of Virgo, it is what is working or no longer working for you, because eclipses can be a point of letting go, yes. They can also be a point of moving to the next level. So you might be noticing some degree of elevation at the time of this eclipse, if it's hitting a personal placement in your chart. But as I say, sometimes we find ourselves being the main characters of eclipses, and other times we're supporting characters. You know, we're noticing significant changes in other people's lives, not necessarily ours. But one thing is for certain, if you do have Pisces or Virgo in your big three, you're probably the main character in this eclipse cycle. And these eclipses are lasting up until 2027. So you might be noticing that the storylines in your life have started evolving since September, when we had that lunar eclipse in Pisces. But really, since the nodes changed signs in January, new storylines are being ushered into your life, and this eclipse might be a peak moment on that journey. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and within 24 hours of this eclipse, Mercury is going to be stationing retrograde, meaning that the changes that are coming up may have some sense of déjà vu. They may have some component to them that is rooted in reflection and reevaluation of the facts, of the details with this eclipse. You may need to review it a little bit more with Mercury going retrograde. And Mercury's going retrograde in the sign of Aries, which is also associated with the physical body, with the person, with the personality. So the changes that are occurring under this eclipse for you, or the changes that may be, you know, things that you're considering making or things that are happening around you, they're really focused on the personal self, what you want, what you need, and who you are on an individual level. With this being in the sign of Aries, Mercury being in the sign of Aries. It is in a conjunction to Venus retrograde, so there is also this sense of reevaluation and reflection of your values, of your needs, of what truly matters to you, and what you consider to be pleasant. Those are undergoing perspective shifts at the time of this eclipse as well. I also want to point out that when we have a lunar eclipse, if nothing happens within the a few days before, a few days after. A lot of the time with eclipses, the changes don't actually come around instantly. A lot of the time they actually happen in well, especially in the 2 weeks after the eclipse is when you really tend to notice what the storyline is, but it can be up to 6 months. So this can be a point where maybe you feel around this eclipse, you're noticing maybe things are coming up subconsciously, you're having unusual dreams. There may be clues and synchronicities pointing you in what direction this eclipse is going in for you, the changes that you're bringing or are being brought to you, but it can be up to 6 months from the point of this eclipse. So just bear that in mind if nothing is changing at the time of this eclipse. Sometimes it can take a little bit of time to get off the ground, but most of the time when there is a significant event occurring, it tends to be in the 2 weeks after the lunar eclipse. With both Mercury and Venus going to be in retrograde the day after this eclipse, it's also likely that if there are key characters coming in with the eclipse, or there are key events or places or concepts coming up around the time of this eclipse, they may have some degree of connection to the past. There may be some people coming back from the past. And I know that a lot of people assume when we say that, especially with Venus retrograde, that it's an X. It isn't always an X, and it isn't always a reconnection of a romantic relationship. Sometimes people can come back into your life because you're meant to work together, or because you're meant to have a significant connection that helps point you in a new direction, a friendship. It can be rekindling with family members. It can be rekindling with people that you knew when you were younger. It isn't always that romantic dynamic. So it may be a time where with this eclipse, the next part of your storyline is requiring you to reconnect with somebody, go back to somewhere. Maybe that's just a location. Maybe you find the eclipse brings you back to a place you used to work, but it's not in the same building. It can be in the same location. It's something like that. There is a sense of the past with this, both because of the South Node and because of Venus and Mercury retrograde happening around the time of this eclipse. So do pay attention. There may be people popping up again around you, and it can be in multiple areas, not necessarily just romantic. You may also find, with Mercury and Venus being the sign of Aries, that you want to return to somebody, you want to reach out to somebody and reconnect with someone important in your life. So as always, I'm going to pull a tarot card for this total lunar eclipse in Virgo. I think with this eclipse, the most likely thing that is going to be popping up in terms of the news is going to be surrounding health matters. Wellness, illness, those type of things may be discussed under this eclipse. The health system, the health service, that type of thing may be coming up around the total lunar eclipse in Virgo. And a lot of people are going to be thinking, I want to make changes that are better for me, that are, unique to your own personal and individual self, with Mercury being in Aries. So this total lunar eclipse, 10 of Cups, that's really pretty. For a lot of people, believe it or not, this total lunar eclipse could be a wish fulfillment. Now, one of the reasons this may be possible that I haven't discussed, and I should have discussed, and this is why tarot is sometimes helpful to jog the memory, there's a trine to Uranus, which can bring really positive surprises. Trines from Uranus can bring positive excitement, positive surprise, unexpected developments, but developments that feel good. And yes, there's that opposition to Saturn, which can be a little bit depressing and can be a little bit serious and a little bit somber. But the trine to Uranus gives way to positive solutions, to positive innovation, and even to positive surprises. And I think with this 10 of Cups, a lot of people could be experiencing some positivity and good feeling around the time of this eclipse. Eclipses aren't all scary, So that is what I have for the total lunar eclipse in Virgo. Timestamps are listed below. I hope you all have a great one, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Aries, welcome to the total lunar eclipse in Virgo horoscope for your sign. So Aries, this lunar eclipse is going to be happening in your 6th house, which makes it a profound moment in your journey of health. You may be finding with this eclipse, particularly as it's lunar and particularly as it's connected to the South Node, that you're wanting to release something from your diet, maybe from your schedule, from your list of responsibilities. The 6th house is all to do with your daily activities, your routines, your schedules. It is to do with your work, your working environment, the services that you provide, and it's also to do with how you take care of your health. So some of you may be wanting to release something from that list. Maybe you're wanting to leave a job. Maybe you're wanting to change your role within an existing job. Maybe you're wanting to let go of a particular service that you provide, or maybe you even want to change the way that you eat or the way that you exercise. With this being said, health is the overall focus, especially because Mercury The ruler of this eclipse is in your first house of the self. So you may be more focused than usual on yourself, your physical body, how what you eat and what you do, how it affects your health and your well-being. For some of you, honestly, it could be that maybe, with Saturn going through the 12th, it could be that you have been overworking or you have felt overburdened. Some of you may have realized that your job was contributing in a negative way to your mental health and your well-being. And so you've decided maybe to switch your hours, you've maybe decided to do less, or just drastically change the way that you work so that you feel better mentally, or you feel more at peace with what you're doing. It is also worth saying that Mars, your ruler, is in your family sector at the moment. So you may be changing what you're doing at work because of home or because of family commitments as well. With Mercury about to go retrograde in your first house of self and Venus already retrograde there, you're really reflecting and reevaluating your approach to life, your relationship with yourself, how you're showing up, what you're wearing, how you're styling yourself, how you feel about life, what you want from life. You're reflecting on all of it and really reevaluating your own relationship to self and how you're getting on with you. But I do think for a lot of you, this is to do with the physical body and how you're taking care of it, how you're moving it. You may find with the Sun-Saturn conjunction in your 12th that you're having unusual dreams. They could be perhaps making you aware of what's holding you back, perhaps where you're self-sabotaging yourself, and you may have at this time as well with this eclipse a greater commitment to mental health and maybe even more of an interest in the spiritual side of life, maybe more interest in spiritual pursuits or a connection to the divine with the Sun-Saturn conjunction in the 12th house. I think with the first house being activated here, especially with the retrogrades, you're looking for a new perspective and you're looking to self-empower yourself when it comes to what you're doing in your everyday life. So I do think for a lot of you, it could be a job change, it could be a health change, and I think it's really reflecting, it's affecting how you view yourself and how you view where you're going and what you're doing and how you're showing up, Aries. So it's an important one for you. It can be very healing, and I think a lot of you are very focused on your well-being and healing process at the time of this eclipse, or the eclipse may trigger that. Now, your tarot card was the Page of Pentacles, which is about laying foundations. Some of you could be finding that you have news regarding your job at this time. The Page of Pentacles also makes me think of, working hard and learning something new. So maybe some of you are thinking about a new goal in the future and you have to do a bit of studying and maybe revisiting the books in order to get there. The Page of Pentacles can be where you're really wanting to lay a solid foundation for yourself and find a more grounded approach to what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, Aries. That's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Taurus, welcome to the lunar eclipse in Virgo, the total lunar eclipse in Virgo horoscope for your sign. So Taurus, this lunar eclipse is happening in your 5th house. And the Sun-Saturn conjunction is in your 11th house. So a lunar eclipse in the 5th house linked to the South Node. Some of you might be falling in love under this full moon, this total lunar eclipse. Some of you might be reconnecting with a past love or reconnecting with someone from the past who comes back as a love interest this time around. Or it can just feel like a past life love. Love could be blossoming at the time of this full moon, and it could be something that you are very... I think it could be quite different for some of you because some of you might be taking this as a very private love affair. Some of you may be finding that you're attracting someone very different than what you're used to because you've been doing so much healing behind the scenes with Mercury in the 12th. And your ruler Venus retrograde in the 12th. A lot of you are really going through a healing period, a clearing out period when it comes to old thoughts, old beliefs about yourself, about love, about life. And you may be noticing under this eclipse that there is perhaps love blossoming and you're approaching it differently. For some of you as well, it can be with it being a total lunar eclipse that you're letting go of a love. If you feel as though there has been deceit or secrecy involved, you may be letting go of it, or information could be coming to the surface that requires you to let go of it. It'll be different for everybody, but when it comes to love, when it comes to romance, this full moon is absolutely highlighting it, but it's very linked to your healing journey or the work you're doing behind the scenes or what you're keeping private. It can also be to do with your children with the 5th house. Some of you might be finding out you're pregnant. This can be around the lunar eclipse or it can be in the next 2 weeks, but it can actually be up to the next 6 months. There could be a pregnancy on the horizon for some Taurus risings in particular. For some of you, it can be children that you already have and big monumental changes happening in their lives. It can also be that they are sharing a secret with you or something that you were not aware of, or you find out that they've been working on something behind the scenes as well, Taurus, if you have children. There can be significant transitions in their life, regardless of what age they are. They can be your adult children as well. This can be a time where you feel more inclined to party. This can be a fun full moon, total lunar eclipse in the 5th. It can also be very creative. It can be a time where you are reaching a peak on something you've been working on behind the scenes, working on privately, something you've been reviewing. It could be something very artistic or very creative in your life that you're looking to express under this full moon, or you may be reaching some kind of milestone or some kind of peak. Now, the Sun-Saturn conjunction in your 11th house puts a focus on friendships. So you may be sort of streamlining the social relationships you have, the groups that you're a part of, the teams that you're a part of, the friends that you have. And you could be noticing with Saturn who's in it for the long haul, who's not, or what you want to be committed to in terms of your aspirations for the long haul and what you don't. The Three of Pentacles was your tarot card, Taurus, which is all about collaboration. So working with a team, synergy. So maybe you're working with other people or you're getting by with a little help from your friends. You might find under this lunar eclipse that you're really seeing who you want to collaborate with. Some of you might be doing creative collaborations with groups of people at this time, people who are a little bit like a soul tribe of sorts, really connecting with people in a meaningful way to express something creatively for some of you. That's what I have for you, Taurus, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Gemini, welcome to the total lunar eclipse in Virgo for your sign. So Gemini, this total lunar eclipse is happening in your 4th house of home and family, and eclipses here can coincide with changes in residence, and this might be because of your work or it might be because of your job. Some of you with the Sun-Saturn conjunction in the 10th, there could be exceptional commitments to your career or your job, or karmic events pertaining to your job or your career. Some of you, it could be retirement, and this lunar eclipse could be that you're spending more time in the home and you're figuring out what to do with that. Maybe you worked a lot and you are now at home more and you're thinking, this place could do with a spruce up, so you're wanting to renovate, redecorate, or even move. Some of you might find though that you're working a lot and you want to work from home, so you want to make it a more productive place. You're wanting to make sure you have the right things with Sun Saturn in the 10th. I think a lot of you are probably also a little bit nostalgic for the past, and some of you may actually be looking into your ancestry or your family history at this time, and there could be some secrets coming out when it comes to home and when it comes to family, things you didn't know. Family secrets could come to a head at this time, Gemini, with the lunar eclipse in the 4th, but of course that can be because you're digging into your ancestry or looking backward a little bit to see what was going on with your ancestors and things like that. You're trying to bring more balance, I think, with your career and your home life, or if it's not career, it can be substantial goals of yours. If you're retiring, for example, who are you outside of the career that you had? What do you want to be known as? For others of you with the with Saturn going through the 10th, this can be a time when you're really redirecting yourself to a more appropriate career for you, something where you could be a leader, something where you could stand up and take charge, or something that just aligns with your goals generally. And success is so different for everybody. There's no one way works for everybody, but Saturn is pushing you to work hard at establishing goals for yourself that feel authentic to you, Gemini. But this lunar eclipse really is putting the focus on what's your home base like. And it can be a time of healing relationships with family members as well. And old memories from the past can come up with a total lunar eclipse in your 4th house. It is ruled by Mercury in your 11th house, so I think a lot of you are wanting to maybe clear up some stuff from the past in order to accommodate a better future for yourself. And some of you could also be reconnecting around this time with childhood friends who grew up in your area that you've known for a very long time. Some of you could actually be reuniting with somebody like that, Gemini. Your tarot card was the 4 of Cups, but it is in reverse. So a lot of you are re-engaging with life. I think you may be finding that with the Saturn Sun conjunction your 10th, that you've maybe missed some opportunities in the past. With the retrograde, sometimes they can come back around again. I think a lot of you are getting your energy back and you're looking for a bit of a boost at this time for something that you're enthusiastic about. You're looking to redirect your enthusiasm, and that might come from switching up the energy in your home, Gemini. That's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Cancer, welcome to the total lunar eclipse in Virgo horoscope for your sign. So Cancer, this lunar eclipse is going to be happening in your 3rd house. So this is putting the spotlight on your neighborhood. There could be some significant events happening for you locally, changes with neighbors. Maybe some neighbors are moving. Maybe some neighbors are having some degree of a crisis with this lunar eclipse, but there could be a significant change in who is in your local community, Cancer. And it may also be that with the 3rd house being the house of communication, there's some very significant conversations at this time happening in your life. And I think for a lot of you, with the ruler of this eclipse, Mercury, being in your 10th and about to be retrograde, Cancer, I think a lot of you could be really reflecting on your career, especially if it's feeling a little bit like a brain drain for you. You might have an important email to send, an important message to send with your career, something to declare, something to say, or you may receive important information about your job. But I think with this eclipse, it's really putting the focus on what you know, the information that you have, and it could bring some information to the surface that you weren't aware of. I would pinpoint it's likely to be either locally to do with your neighbors, your siblings. It can be also changes with your car. Maybe some of you are selling or buying a new car. But I do think with Mercury being in your 10th and about to go retrograde, this communication or what's on your mind may be in terms of your goals and your career. There is a Sun-Saturn conjunction happening in your 9th house, and this is all to do with your beliefs that are being tested at this time with Saturn. You could be having very, when it comes to your beliefs and your views of the world, they have that little bit more of a serious tone with Saturn. This may also be a time when you're pursuing a new sort of education, you're learning something new, you're wanting to research something, you're wanting to gather information. Maybe some of you are graduating or getting degrees or diplomas or certificates around the time of this eclipse. Oftentimes when we have eclipses in the 3rd house or the 9th, we do come out of them with a significant piece of paper. So that might be a degree, it might be a diploma, or it might be a certificate at this time. But it can put your focus onto schooling and education as well, Cancer, and this can be something you're taking very seriously. For some of you, it could be doing your driving test or getting your first car, or even selling a car, letting go of a car with a total lunar eclipse. As you can see, the 3rd house and the 9th house are quite busy houses. There's usually a lot of ways these can play out for people, and they can be quite different. It can also be possible around the time of this eclipse with the Sun-Saturn conjunction that you are traveling, going to a foreign location or going somewhere for a bit of a vacation or a bit of a break, Cancer. Your tarot card is interesting. It's the 10 of Pentacles, which is to do with family, it's to do with wealth. So a lot of you might be thinking in terms of your, if you're pursuing something not career-wise, but if you're pursuing something in terms of your education, Cancer, and yes, I suppose, Mercury and Venus retrograde in your 10th house. Mercury goes retrograde the day after this eclipse. You could be very much reflecting on your career and your goals, and you might be thinking, I'm not quite content where I am or what I'm doing, so I want to get this degree or this diploma in order to go in a new direction that's going to be more fruitful financially or better for your family. That may be a motivating factor for you at this time, Cancer. That's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Leo, welcome to the total lunar eclipse in Virgo for your sign. So Leo, this eclipse is really putting the focus onto your finances. It's a 2nd house eclipse, meaning that there may be some degree of financial changes going on in your life at this time. You might be letting go of one particular source of income. You might be going through job changes that are changing how much you're earning. You might be really focused on security and what you have, what possessions you have as well, what assets you have. I think for a lot of you though, with a total lunar eclipse in Virgo, you may have the desire to declutter and get rid of a few things, clearing out your house, letting go of some possessions, letting go of some things that no longer work for you, clothes that no longer fit, items you no longer need and sort of changing up what you have. You might also be having a shift in terms of your own values or your self-confidence and your self-worth. That could be changing under this time, and you could be letting go of blockages to self-worth or blockages to self-confidence at this time as well, Leo. And I think a lot of you might be really figuring out what does and doesn't matter to you and expressing that, expressing your values and what is important to you to other people, and maybe even letting go of some people if they don't connect with your values, if they don't respect your values or your morals, or inviting change into relationships where you feel that these have not been respected prior. So for a lot of you, this can be a full moon where you're really, letting out your roar and saying, actually, this is what I think. Actually, this is what I need. Actually, this is what I believe. And I think a lot of you are gaining quite a bit of confidence and information, knowledge really, on your psychological self. A lot of you with the Sun-Saturn conjunction in the 8th could be very focused on psychology, on patterns, on healing from past traumas, letting go of emotional baggage. And this may be helping you to work with your self-confidence and your self-worth. Now, the other way that this can play out with the Sun-Saturn conjunction in the 8th is that you might be finding that your joint resources are coming into focus, your mortgage, loans, grants, your partner's money. You and a partner could be getting very serious about your finances, really going through it with a fine-tooth comb, making some commitments, making some restrictions, even with Saturn, becoming very responsible with money and your resources. With the Sun-Saturn conjunction, the Sun is your ruler and Saturn is actually the traditional ruler of your partner. So you could be partnering with someone in a way that requires some degree of financial commitment. And this could be, as I say, someone in the government, or it could be, so for example, your taxes or a loan or something like that, or a mortgage, or it could be your partner's money. There could be some serious conversations going on or some serious examination going on when it comes to what you and a partner share, assets. But it can also be that you feel you're getting closer to somebody on a psychological level and you're trying to invite more intimacy into your relationships. And by that I mean being vulnerable, being close with other people, and being able to talk about your shadow, or you're maybe getting more acquainted with your shadow with the North Node there in Pisces. You're sort of more interested in it, digging a little bit deeper, looking inward, feeling a little bit more reflective. Now, the eclipse in your 2nd house is ruled by Mercury in your 9th. So maybe for some of you at this time, Leo, you're spending money on traveling, you're spending money on education, or you're spending money on a spiritual experience, I think you may be getting confidence from a spiritual perspective as well. But for a lot of you, it could be, dropping a substantial financial sum on a vacation or a holiday or traveling abroad, with Mercury being in the 9th house. Now, Mercury is about to go retrograde, so if you are traveling, just remember to double check times, make sure you have everything you need, make sure that you have all the details and information right, and that you are prepared if there are delays or something of that nature, Leo. Your tarot card is the Wheel of Fortune, which is about karma. It's a very karmic eclipse. Something very destined could be happening in your life at the time of this eclipse that would be natural. So keep me posted. That's what I have for you, Leo, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Virgo, welcome to the total lunar eclipse in your sign, Virgo. You are, of course, the star of this show. So a total lunar eclipse in your sign, in your 1st house if you're a Virgo rising, this can be quite emotional for you. This can be quite sensitive. Eclipses tend to be quite revealing, so you might find at this time that your emotions or your feelings, maybe you feel like they are on display, you can't hide them, they're written on your face, you have something to express. A lot of you could be, for want of a better word at the time of this eclipse, Virgo, a little bit triggered. Now, this is because Mercury, the ruler of this eclipse, your ruler, is in your 8th house and about to go retrograde. So whatever emotions come up at this time, Virgo, if you feel more sensitive, if you feel more emotional, do pay attention to that feeling, because it might be revealing something about your psyche. With Mercury being in the 8th house, you're reflecting on your emotional baggage, past traumas, your patterns, your shadow effectively. So a lot of you could really be purging some pent-up emotions at the time of this eclipse that need to come out, but they may reveal to you a pattern that you want to work on, that you want to heal from as well. I think a lot of you as well could be really thinking about your own personal financial situation at this time, especially if it involves another person, so a business partner or the government or a romantic partner. If you have joint finances with someone else, you may be noticing how you feel about that. For some reason, that might be a source of reevaluation for you. You know, you're maybe thinking, how much am I doing here? And just in terms of sharing with other people in general, you might be examining your relationship to others through that perspective of how much am I giving? How much are they giving? What's fair? What's just? What's correct? And really reflecting on that. But I do think for a lot of you, this could be quite an emotional one, quite a sensitive one, Virgo, with it being in your sign and it being a total eclipse. And the fact that it's ruled by a planet in your 8th. So it can be quite an emotional time for you. And you might also find that when it comes to your relationships with other people, you're examining the commitments there too. Sometimes with Sun Saturn conjunctions in the 7th, you can feel this coldness or indifference from other people at moments that isn't necessarily intended, but it can be because of something that's going on for you emotionally. You're just feeling that bit more sensitive. Just be mindful in case you're maybe picking up on something different than what's going on there. But I also think with the Sun Saturn conjunction in your sector of relationships, it is testing your partnerships too. It is testing your relationships with other people. So as I say, business partnerships, romantic relationships, best friend, close, dynamics in your life. The Sun Saturn conjunction tests them, and sometimes they can temporarily feel a little bit chillier than usual, but other times it can just be saying, okay, am I going to commit to this or not? Or am I going to commit to this relationship or not? Or how's this commitment going? Sort of checking in, and maybe as well needing to set a few boundaries with people, Virgo, or get the rules clear on what's going on in your personal dynamics. I think for a lot of you with this lunar eclipse bringing the focus back onto you and the South Node being here, you may be undergoing some physical changes. You might be making some changes to your appearance. You might have recently made some changes to your appearance, and this can also be putting the focus onto your physical body and your relationship with it. Some of you may be interested in doing healing work that releases emotions from the physical body, certain types of stretches and things like that with the 1st house, 8th house connection, thanks to Mercury. Some of you may be wanting to have something removed physically at this time as well, with the lunar eclipse being in your 1st house. So for one person, that could be hair extensions. For another person, it could be, a mole, something that you want to have removed from your body potentially. That's not for all of you. For some of you, it could actually just be that you're clearing out your wardrobe, your clothes, styles, makeup, things that don't work for you anymore, Virgo. Your tarot card was the Ace of Pentacles, which is really cute. I think for a lot of you, you're really thinking at this time on building a better future for yourself, something more stable. Some of you might be getting a job offer around this time, or you might be beginning a new cycle financially. Not just yet, but with the effects of a lunar eclipse, it can be within the 2 weeks or even up to the 6 months after a lunar eclipse. I think some of you might be making new investments, setting up a new savings account, getting a new job, focusing on your finances, starting a new business relationship, a new business partnership, a new romantic partnership, whatever the case may be, Virgo. With this reevaluation and this reflection of what's going on within you, it will result in new beginnings outside of you. And that's what I have for you, Virgo, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Libra, welcome to the total lunar eclipse in Virgo for your sign. So Libra, this total lunar eclipse is happening in your 12th house. So one way this may play out for you, because the 12th house is behind the scenes, it's the subconscious, it's very private, is that it may be a time where your dreams are more active than usual. You could be having very profound, very interesting, very vivid dreams at this time that are maybe revealing something to you. Oftentimes dreams are a mirror to our subconscious mind, so they might be alerting you to what you have not let go of or what you need to let go of. Lunar eclipses in the 12th, especially total lunar eclipses, are a time of letting go. So you might be letting go of something that is perhaps very rooted in the past. It could be a belief, it could be a self-sabotaging behavior, it could be something that is holding you back in some way. It can be an addiction, it can be a vice. It's interesting that the ruler of this eclipse is Mercury in your 7th house of relationships, and it's about to go retrograde. So a lot of you could be reflecting on the health of your partnerships and your relationships, or the health of your perspective and your views on partnerships and relationships. A lot of the time, eclipses in the 12th house can coincide with a person's healing journey, whether that be going to hypnosis or seeing a therapist or doing some form of healing work, maybe even from a spiritual perspective. Something that requires you to go inward, to look inward and face yourself. And for some of you, this could be healing, from past relationships, or wanting to let go of something within an existing relationship, or maybe even having the assistance of another person to do this. Maybe you have a great therapist, or you're going back to a therapist that you used to see to help you work through these things. A lot of you could certainly be wanting to work through limiting behaviors or self-sabotaging beliefs or trauma pertaining to relationships and partnerships. Some of you could be wanting to, let go of a grudge to an ex or to a current partner, or wanting to forgive somebody with this total lunar eclipse ruled by Mercury in the 7th house. It can also be a time where maybe you're noticing that perhaps an enemy is revealed. Lunar eclipses can sometimes reveal who our enemies are whenever they occur in the 12th or the 7th. Both of those houses pertain to enemies. The 7th house is the open enemies, so someone you're in competition with, but the 12th house is the hidden enemies. And more often than not, I find the 12th house is linked to the enemies within ourselves, where we self-sabotage and things like that. But I'm just noticing for you, Libra, this could be a competitor. They could be eclipsed out of your life, they could be leaving your life, or they could be revealed to you at the time of this total lunar eclipse. Now, we do have a Sun-Saturn conjunction happening in your 6th house of work. So, this is a time to really get serious and get committed to your health and your working life. With the Sun-Saturn conjunction there, you might have a serious conversation with someone in a position of authority, or someone very knowledgeable when it comes to your health or when it comes to your work. So you could be having a conversation with your boss that could require additional commitment from you, responsibility for you. It is a very karmic time, so karmic experiences can be happening when it comes to your job, when it comes to your employment, or when it comes to your health as well. So I think for a lot of you, with the Saturn conjunction to the Sun there impacting this eclipse, you could probably be finding yourself go down a route health-wise that requires a lot of discipline, that requires a lot of consistency and maintenance when it comes to your health. So good time to simply focus on the basics: eating well, resting well, sleeping well, that kind of thing. Otherwise, I say sleep could be a bit interesting for you at this time, Libra. Your tarot card was the Four of Wands, which is about your marriage, your spouse, your committed partnership, with Mercury being there. With Mercury being there about to go retrograde and Venus, your ruler, retrograde in that sector, a lot of you are certainly reviewing your relationships. I think some of you could be considering under this eclipse what ones you need to release, what ones you need to let go of, or even what beliefs or self-sabotaging habits you need to let go of in order to have better relationships, or what you need to, maybe even in some cases, Libra, forgive from the past. But take it as it resonates. That's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Scorpio, welcome to the total lunar eclipse in Virgo for your sign. Scorpio, this total lunar eclipse is happening in your friendship sector. So it's a south node eclipse. Mercury rules this eclipse. Mercury's about to go retrograde. So some of you could be reconnecting with old friends. You could be connecting with old groups, old friends, teams of people. There could be possibly some focus on what's going on in the life of a friendship. They might share with you a secret, they might share with you some knowledge, they might have a significant event happening in their life. This can also be a time where someone is eclipsed out of your life, out of your friendship circle, out of a group, out of a team that you're a part of. You might be letting someone go who's maybe been a friend for quite a while. You might be finding that there's significant changes when it comes to the teams that you're a part of. But I have equally seen and experienced that south node eclipses can sometimes bring old friends or people that you used to socialize with back from the past. So say you went to university with a group of people and you were friendly with someone there, but then you moved away. You can then find yourself working with that person or something like this. So, you might have somebody come back into your life at the time of the lunar eclipse if they're a friend or they were in your same social network. With this being a lunar eclipse as well, you could be feeling maybe quite nostalgic with friends from the past, or going over the good old days with groups of people and teams. For a lot of you, it could be a reunion with this one, to be honest with you. But for others of you, it can be a series of maybe letting go of some friendships from your life. And that can sometimes be because they move. You know, sometimes with eclipses, it can be movement. Someone is moving away. Particularly women in this case, Scorpio, because it's a lunar eclipse. It is ruled by Mercury in your 6th house, so these can be friends that you used to work with, friends that you used to be in the same job as, friends you knew from the gym, friends you knew from exercise, health, the medical field, for example. These can be the type of friends that you reunite with, or even if you make new friends under this lunar eclipse, they can be past life connections. That's one way this can play out too. You can make past life connections with people friendship-wise who are there to help you through a particular cycle in your life, or help you grow, or help you evolve as well, Scorpio. And you might meet them in the gym, you might meet them through your job, or something like that. Now, the Sun-Saturn conjunction is happening in your 5th house, which is to do with your children. So this might be a time where there is some sort of commitment coming up to you based on your children. So that could be for some of you pregnancy, birth. That could be for some of you that there's something going on in your child's life where you have to perhaps help them in some way, shape, or form, with the 5th house being in play here. It can also be a creative commitment for some of you with the Sun-Saturn conjunction. You're wanting to commit to something creatively. It might require a group or a team effort, this one, Scorpio. And I think a lot of you could be finding that maybe you're becoming a parent around this time as well, or you are perhaps becoming a grandparent, or even noticing a significant event occur within the life of one of your children, regardless of what age they are. So it can be your adult children as well, Scorpio. That can be something that's changing up at this time too. So your tarot card was the Page of Swords, which is all about communication. So some of you could be getting an important message around this time. Some of you could be feeling very chatty with this lunar eclipse ruled by Mercury. Some of you could be pursuing something creatively like photography or writing, or some degree of communication around this time as well, Scorpio. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Sagittarius, welcome to the total lunar eclipse in Virgo for your sign. Sagittarius, this is going to be happening in your 10th house. So an eclipse in the 10th house can oftentimes bring you into the spotlight, bring you into the public eye for some reason. It can coincide with becoming a leader. It can coincide with a big job change. It can coincide with promotion. It can also coincide with retirement, or, you know, going through a significant shift professionally, or noticing that the people in your career that are maybe in positions of authority over you are changing at the time of this eclipse. But it can certainly just, for some of you, be making some significant job changes or goal changes around the time of this eclipse. But you could find yourself in the spotlight as well. There could be a lot of commitments for you when it comes to your home and your family, and it's maybe making you rethink what you can do professionally, or what you want to do professionally. So with Sun and Saturn in your 4th house, and now the North Node being there, a lot of your commitments, a lot of your efforts, a lot of your responsibilities are linked to your home, whether that's purchasing a home, buying a home, well, that's the same thing, maintaining a home, building a family, anything like that. Sagittarius, a lot of your commitments can be linked to home, property, and family, maybe caring for a family member. And this may be changing what your career priorities actually are. So some of you could be leaving a job, or some of you could just be releasing part of your old role, part of your old professional status, or something of that nature. And you might find that with so much focus being on your home, property, real estate, you maybe feel a little bit like you're not as motivated by your career. But for others of you, if you feel like you're now getting the solid foundation career-wise, you know, if you've been maybe buying a house and you've been renovating it, now it looks the way that you want, and you feel like you've got a good solid base. Some of you could be thinking, okay, well, what's next career-wise? So for a lot of you, this one could be a job change. It's an interesting one too, because it's ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is currently in your 5th house, about to go retrograde. So for those of you that have children, or you work with children, or children are part of your job or career, You may find that you're reflecting on that at this time. So some of you could be thinking professionally in terms of what works best for you in raising your children. If you're in a profession that works with children, you could be reflecting on your role within that company or that organization. For others of you, it could be creative in terms of your career. Maybe you're wanting to pursue something that's more creative or something that feels more fun to you with Mercury in the 5th house. And with Mercury about to go retrograde and this being a South Node eclipse, it may be rooted in the past. Something you used to do that was fun, looking back at what gave you happiness, what gave you joy, what gave you pleasure when it comes to your career. You could be looking at it through that perspective. Generally, Sagittarius, you're reflecting on what makes you happy. With Mercury about to go retrograde in the 5th and Venus already retrograde there, you're thinking about what makes you happy and what makes you feel creatively fulfilled or what makes you feel emotionally fulfilled, what's fun for you. And this is impacting the career changes that you're making, or as I say, your children are impacting the career changes that you're making. Maybe even for some of you, it's romantic. Maybe some of you are wanting to get out there and date, but you're always at the office. So you're thinking, okay, I'm going to make some changes professionally to accommodate more romance. Something like that, Sagittarius. Your tarot card was the 9 of Pentacles, which is about self-sufficiency, and it's a good sign of career success. So some of you might be getting rewards for your labor at the time of this lunar eclipse. Some of you might be becoming self-employed, maybe doing something creative. Some of you might be finding more fulfillment and freedom with your career, or that's something you're making changes to receive. That's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Capricorn, welcome to the total lunar eclipse in Virgo for your sign. So Capricorn, this full moon, this total lunar eclipse is happening in your 9th house. So this is about adventure for you with this total lunar eclipse, seeking new horizons. Some of you might be making travel plans, traveling somewhere new, but it feels familiar. When there's a South Node eclipse in the 9th house, a lot of people find themselves traveling somewhere where they feel a sense of deja vu. They feel they've been there before. They feel that they have some sort of destiny linked to that place. It feels karmic in some way. You feel called to go there. It can also be somewhere you have actually been before. The South Node indicates the past. Sometimes it's a lifetime and sometimes it's this lifetime. So some of you might be making travel plans to somewhere that you feel a real calling to go or go back to. So that could be happening for you at this time, Virgo. Not Virgo, Capricorn, with this eclipse in Virgo. So just bear in mind though, within the next 2 weeks, this is when these things are most likely to occur, but they can occur within the next 6 months, these travel plans or arrangements. So some of you might also be finding when it comes to your belief, your religion, your spiritual philosophies, you could be having a re-examination. You could find yourself connecting deeper with your faith, or you could find yourself having shifts or changes when it comes to your beliefs, Capricorn, with this eclipse. So maybe your beliefs are changing in some way, or maybe you're connecting more deeply with them. You're maybe becoming a bit more spiritual or a bit more interested in spirituality at the time of this lunar eclipse. Others of you, it can be to do with higher education. You could be graduating, you could be leaving finishing up a course of study. Eclipses in the 3rd and the 9th oftentimes coincide with receiving important bits of paper. So a degree, a master's, a diploma, a certificate, something that requires study, something that requires education. So you could find yourself maybe going back to school in this time period, Capricorn, or wanting to go back to study something or complete some studies that you've done before. You might be feeling more philosophical, more interested in studying or learning about certain topics, maybe one in particular, Capricorn. And it may also be to do with your family, your ancestry, or even property, because the ruler of this eclipse, Mercury, is in your 4th house. So you could be wanting to research or learn about property matters. Maybe you're getting a real estate license. Maybe some of you are wanting to learn about ancestry, looking into your family tree with Mercury being in the 4th house about to go retrograde. Or maybe you're wanting to study something that people in your family have studied before, something that is maybe a familial interest of yours within your family tree. Some of you could actually be researching the family tree as well, Capricorn. But I do think some of you could be returning to finish something up education-wise as well. Now, the Sun and Saturn are connected in your third house, so that can emphasize the commitment to learning, the commitment to reading, the commitment to writing, the commitment to communication. You could need to have an important discussion with a sibling. There could be something serious going on in the life of a sibling at this time. With Sun-Saturn conjunctions, sometimes it can be a bit heavy, or sometimes it can bring about commitments or a bit of a karmic reset as well with a sibling, maybe even with a neighbor, maybe even with maybe getting a new car, committing to a new car with the Sun Saturn conjunction. And I say that too because your tarot card Capricorn is actually the Chariot, which usually comes up when someone is maybe changing their car, getting a new car, or having to invest in their car in some way, shape, or form with this Sun Saturn conjunction. So maybe for some of you that applies. You're having to get a new car. A lot of you could definitely get a new car this year or experience, I know this sounds like an odd thing to say, karmic lessons in terms of cars. I did go through that when there were eclipses in my third house, and I remember it was every eclipse season something would come up with the car. And it really, it taught me a lot about cars. I don't know what the karmic consequences of it, but it kept putting me into these places of reflection because the car wouldn't work, so I couldn't leave the house for the most part. So maybe there are karmic things coming up with a car and it's there to teach you patience. I do remember going to a workshop once, it was a spiritual workshop, and they said that when there's changes with your car or something's happening with your car, it reflects where you are at. So if you do have something going on with your car at this time, Capricorn, pay attention to what it is. Are the brakes not working? Does that mean that you are not slowing down when you need to? Is your headlight out, meaning you don't know what direction you're going in or something like that? I know it sounds very metaphorical and cliche, but it is an interesting perspective. I always found it really interesting because it did always resonate with me anyway when I had car trouble during that period. But it can also mean with the Chariot that you're going full steam ahead on a project or something that you're really passionate about, probably to do with learning for a lot of you, or travel. That's what I have for you, Capricorn, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Aquarius, welcome to the total lunar eclipse in Virgo horoscope for your sign. Aquarius, this is happening in your 8th house. Now the 8th house is to do with merging, and it's also to do with transformation. So you may be wanting to connect more deeply with someone in your life, and I mean really connect more deeply. So maybe taking a relationship to a next level, maybe sharing some intimate details with them, maybe getting vulnerable with them. It can also be that you want to let go of a relationship in your life. You don't want that shared connection or that shared energy anymore. So you're wanting to release it with this eclipse being in the 8th house. It can also be that there's something in your life that you want to transform, Aquarius, something that you really want to change. And I feel like with the ruler of this eclipse being Mercury in your 3rd house of communication, this is going to require a conversation for a lot of you. There could be a conversation comes up that's very significant, could even be life-changing depending on how this interacts with your chart. It could be something that really changes the direction of a current dynamic in your life. That dynamic could be your significant other, but it could also be a sibling. It could be a relationship with a neighbor. It could be a relationship with someone in your local community. It could be a teacher. But I think for a lot of you, you're really figuring out, what needs to change at the time of this lunar eclipse. And it could also be that things change around you. Sometimes lunar eclipses in the 8th house can be about change happening around you. But to be truthful, what I've always observed with lunar eclipses in the 8th is that they can actually really hit you in the feelings. The 8th house is where we have emotional baggage. The 8th house and the 12th house can be where we're really, and the 4th, but where we're really hitting the feelings. And when a lunar eclipse comes along in the 8th house, you can find all these emotions that you've been holding on to come up out of nowhere, and it can be a bit of a purge. It can be emotional baggage that comes up at this time to be released, especially with the South Node there. And that may be emotional baggage from a romantic connection, a vulnerable connection, past betrayals, or something like that can be triggered around this time. Sometimes the only way to release it is to feel through it, but you may have to have a conversation about it for some of you. This can also be a time when you're maybe wrapping up a joint financial endeavor. So you could be, perhaps you and a partner or spouse could be paying off your mortgage, or you could be getting a loan for a mortgage. You could be getting a mortgage, you could be getting a grant, a loan, or there could be significant shifts in the financial situation of a partner. So something could be changing with their finances at this time, Aquarius. Because your modern ruler is Uranus in a trine to this from the 4th house, I feel like this may be something that you have family support for, or property, or or your property or family are somewhat supportive to you in terms of the financial changes that you're making or the emotional catharsis that you're going through at this time as well. But you do seem to be reevaluating your closest connections, your closest bonds and how they're working and if something does need to change. You might also, get information from a sibling at this time. I just want to mention siblings for you because Mercury is about to go retrograde in that sector, Venus is retrograde in that sector, so there can be misunderstandings, or they can be the one that says something or does something that maybe triggers a wound within you, or it can be that a neighbor does this. Just something to be mindful of because there can be miscommunications in those areas as well, Aquarius. Your tarot card was the Four of Pentacles, which is about attachment. So it's interesting with this one, the Sun and Saturn are connected in your second house of income, of finances, and I think for a lot of you, you may be with this eclipse in the 8th wanting to reframe your relationship to money and see what the psychological link is. Some people spend more money when they're lonely, or some people spend more money when they're feeling a bit down. And you could be noticing what the psychological connection to your spending is. But for a lot of you, you could be making some significant financial commitment. And this is maybe to be more conservative and maybe to be a little bit more picky with what you spend your money on. Aquarius, you might have some things that really require you to be financially responsible. So you could be getting very serious about your money at this time too. And then that could, of course, be changing how you and your partner deal with money as well. That's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Pisces, welcome to the total lunar eclipse in Virgo horoscope for your sign. So Pisces rising, you're one of the stars of the show for this total lunar eclipse because the sun will be in your sign next to Saturn. Now this lunar eclipse is happening in your relationship sector though, so this is bringing to the fore matters surrounding relationships, partnerships, with this total lunar eclipse being in that sector. So if you're single, this can bring about a new fated relationship in your life. Now when I say new, the South Node is in your relationship sector, so new doesn't really mean brand new for the most part. If it is someone you've not met before in this lifetime, you most likely have some degree of a past life connection, which is obvious if you feel a sense of deja vu and there's an instant camaraderie. It can also be if you look at your synastry, you have South Node synastry. But it can be someone from the past as well. It doesn't have to be someone you were in a relationship with before, but it can be someone that you've met before. Someone you've already interacted with before and they come back around. It's emphasized by the fact that Mercury, the ruler of your 7th house, is about to go retrograde in your 2nd. So you may reconnect with someone and have different values this time around that match. So say for example, you didn't work out before because you had different values. You might work around this time because your values have changed. But I think for a lot of you, when it comes to relationship changes, if you're single, it's very likely to be someone who's quite fated in nature. They're here to teach you something about yourself. They're here to help you learn and help you grow, as any good soulmate would do. So for a lot of you, you could meet someone very significant around this time, someone who increases your confidence, maybe even increases your finances, with Mercury in the 2nd house in a conjunction to Venus. For those of you that are in relationships, this can bring about changes there too. If you're in a relationship that is not working because they negatively impact you, maybe financially or in terms of your self-confidence, maybe they hit your confidence, or you don't have the same values, those relationships can end at this time. But for most coupled Pisces risings, this is likely to be a time where there's changes happening in your relationship life. There's changes happening in their life that change the relationship, or maybe your personal changes are changing your relationship. As you change, so does the partnership. So I think for a lot of you with the Sun-Saturn conjunction in your sign, you're very committed to yourself. You're very focused on your work and your personal goals, your personal health. You are probably setting better boundaries for yourself, and this in turn can change or shift partnerships. It doesn't mean they have to end. It can, if you're single, change the type of relationships that you attract though. And if you're in a current relationship where you focusing more on yourself is maybe not what They want those relationships can end. The first house and the seventh house are so connected because the changes that you make change either the relationship that you're in, or they change the type of people that you attract. But that doesn't mean relationships have to end on that basis. You know, you can adapt and change and move forward with the South Node there. It can just be as well that your partner is experiencing job changes perhaps, or something of that nature. I think with the Sun-Saturn conjunction in your sign, you may be having to take on more responsibility in a partnership as well, or with home and family affairs, potentially, Pisces. For a lot of you, if you're meeting somebody new, they could be an earth sign, as we have the Queen of Pentacles. So Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo. A lot of the time when we have first and south node, first and seventh house eclipses, the other person that we are interacting with or experiencing the most learning with can be someone who is on the same axis, so someone who has Pisces or Virgo in their big three. Doesn't have to be though. This can also be someone who is going to be a great business partner for you. If it's a business partnership that you're calling into your life, someone who can help you with your finances, someone who can help you with your confidence and your skills as well, Pisces, that can be the Queen of Pentacles for you. The trine from Uranus can bring about positive unexpected communication or positive unexpected developments for you locally, Pisces, as well. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon.